Hi, I'm Dorian Lamb, and welcome to Start with the Close in Mind. As an owner of a title company and a seasoned real estate professional, I've seen firsthand how focusing on the close is the key to getting the results you want. What I've learned over the years is that this principle doesn't just apply to real estate, it applies to business, strategy, and life. Each episode, I'll share the tools, insights, and real-world experiences, both the wins and the lessons learned, that have helped me and others achieve our goals. I will also bring on some of the most successful business minds across industries to uncover how they approach deals, decisions, and success by starting with the close in mind. Welcome to Start with the Close in Mind. Let's dive in. Welcome to the very first episode of Start with the Close in Mind. I'm your host, Dorian Lamb, and I'm thrilled to have you here. For those who don't know me, I specialize in real estate closings in the fast-paced New York City market. My goal is to revolutionize how real estate transactions happen, to ensure fully transparent and smooth closings every time. This podcast is for anyone looking to master the art of closing deals, whether you're buying your dream home, building a real estate portfolio, or just trying to understand the process better because you or someone you know is going through buying or about to buy property. So thank you for tuning in, and let's dive in. The idea of start with the close in mind is rooted in a simple but powerful principle. Always start with the end in mind. Successful closings don't happen by accident. They shouldn't be left to chance or handled on the fly. It's about preparing early, gathering as much information as possible, anticipating challenges, and aligning all the pieces to ensure a smooth and a more highly successful chance to finish. Too often, I've seen deals falter because of a lack of foresight or leaving critical steps until the last minute. That's where this concept comes in. Start with the close in mind is about flipping the script. Approach every transaction with intentionality from day one. It's about thinking through the details you know, asking the right questions, and setting up a framework so that the final step, the closing, feels like a victory lap rather than a reactive scramble through a minefield of surprises. Let me take you back to when I knew something wasn't right. Time and time again, sitting at a closing, I'd see closings fall apart at the table. Issues surfacing at the 11th hour that could have been easily identified and addressed earlier in the process. For example, imagine sitting at a closing table and someone suddenly discovers a 7-figure water bill attached to the property, or a developer ready to finalize their deal finds out for the very first time that the deed has a restriction that would severely limit what they're actually trying to do with the land. These aren't small hiccups. They're deal breakers. I realized then that the closing process was fundamentally flawed. It was being treated as an afterthought when in reality, it should have been the first consideration. I needed to change that mindset. And from that moment on, I made it my mission to flip the script. I couldn't just react to problems as they arose. I had to help clients anticipate challenges, present actionable solutions, and guide everyone to a better and more successful closing. That experience taught me the critical importance of thinking ahead and starting with the close in mind. So how do I consistently and successfully close deals? It comes down, of course, to experience, strategy, and in execution. My company has successfully closed over 16,000 deals. And we've learned that the process boils down to some key principles. And the first is to hire the right company. That's right. The company you choose can make or break your deal. Most people don't realize that an attorney typically works with a real estate closing company or a title insurance company, which acts as the central hub for all parties in the transaction and issues, at the end of the day, a title insurance policy. Here's the kicker. In New York City, like many other states, it's your right as the purchaser or borrower to research and hire this company. You're the one paying for their services, so why let someone else make the decision for you? All too often, this choice is made without your input and sometimes without your best interest in mind. Number 2, engage your closing company early. This step is often overlooked, but can be a game changer. Reach out to your closing or title insurance company as early as possible, even before you put in a bid. This allows you to understand your potential closing costs and run preliminary searches upfront about the property. By doing this, you can uncover potential issues like title problems or undisclosed property details well before they become deal-breaking surprises. Number 3, work with the right professionals. When it comes to real estate, there's nothing more accurate than the old adage, you get what you pay for. Surround yourself with experienced, trustworthy professionals who have your back and aren't cutting corners, because cutting corners on expertise can lead to costly mistakes down the line. By hiring the right company, engaging early, and working with the right professionals, you can take full control of your transaction and ensure a more seamless closing. So let's start with step 1. And for me, at least, the most crucial step, hiring the right company. Many people don't realize how impactful this decision is. The closing company you choose is more than just a service provider. It's the hub that brings all the moving parts of the transaction together. It's also the anchor of the closing, responsible for recording your documents to public record and, in a way, officially finalizing the transaction. Additionally, the closing or title company executes many of the curative measures agreed to at closing, like clearing open permits or paying off property taxes, transfer taxes, mansion taxes. These steps ensure you don't assume any unexpected liabilities after you leave the closing table. Here's the thing. In New York City and many other states, it's your right as the purchaser or borrower to select the closing company. But far too often, buyers let someone else make this decision for them, sometimes without even realizing it. And unfortunately, this choice isn't always made with your best interest in mind. So how do you pick the right company? Well, start by doing what you would normally do when researching anything else, especially service companies. Look them up on Google. Make sure they have an actual website. That may sound funny, but you'd be surprised how many companies don't even have one or don't really spend the time explaining what they do on them. And of course, check to see if they're reputable. How do you do that? By reading their Google reviews. See what others are saying about the company. Pay attention to the reviews themselves and see if they mention specific team members, because real estate is a very human-driven business. You want a company where people are accessible, knowledgeable, and responsive, of course. Let me share a story that really drives this home. I once worked with a client who was purchasing a piece of property, and they were about to unknowingly move forward with a company recommended by their attorney. Normal. And assuming it wasn't their decision. But because I knew them, they reached out to me for advice. And I encouraged them to look deeper and do a simple internet research or internet search. After some research, they discovered the recommended company had a barely functioning website, 0 reviews, and shockingly, it was owned by the very person that referred them. So take control of the decision and hire someone like myself instead. In this case, they did. We handled the process with transparency, responsiveness, and of course, the care and compassion that they deserved in buying property. And we avoided unnecessary delays and made sure they always had someone available to answer their questions. That's the most important part there. The takeaway here is simple. It is your money, it is your property, and it is your deal. Take the time to research and hire a company that prioritizes your interests and has a proven track record of success. A little due diligence up front can save you a lot of stress and uncertainty down the road. Let's go into step 2. Now that we've covered the importance of hiring the right closing company, Let's move on to the next step, an important step. Engage your closing company as early as possible to gather as much additional information as possible. The more information, the better. It doesn't hurt to know more about what you're about to invest a significant amount into. This step is often overlooked, but it can be a game changer and a significant time saver. Most people think that the closing company comes into play at the end of the transaction or right after a contract is signed. But the truth is, the earlier you bring them in, the better the position you put yourself in for a smooth closing process. When you engage your company early, ideally even before you put in a bid, get some more information from them to understand what the tax ramifications are in that area. They will help you understand your potential closing costs up front, so you're not blindsided later and can incorporate that into your bid. They can also run some preliminary searches and identify any red flags like unpaid liens, bills, taxes, or violations on their property that they may not even know about, or that the broker or seller may not disclose because they may not, frankly, even know themselves. Here's an example. I worked with a couple one time who were buying their first home. Before they even made an offer, they reached out to me to run some preliminary searches. In this case, good thing they did, because we discovered that the property was tied up in a probate issue that wasn't disclosed by the seller. This wasn't something they could have known on their own or that anyone would volunteer as information. And if they waited until later, it could have delayed the closing significantly, or worse, it could have killed the deal altogether if they were in a time crunch. But because we identified the issue early, they were able to negotiate a contingency into their offer, giving the seller time to resolve the probate problem while still securing their place as the buyer. This kind of foresight would not have been possible without engaging the closing company at the very start. The takeaway here is clear. Don't wait until the last minute to bring your title company into the conversation. The earlier you involve them, the more value they can provide, not just in identifying potential problems, but in giving you the peace of mind as you move forward. Think of it like having a navigator on your own journey. We can help guide you away from the roadblocks and make sure you reach your destination as smooth as possible and with as little impediments in the way. Now let's talk about the third and final key step. That's working with the right professionals. There's a general saying, as I said before, that couldn't be more true when it comes to real estate. You get what you pay for. And when it comes to professionals you surround yourself with during a transaction, this is especially important. The professionals you choose, whether it's your broker, your closing company, your lender, your attorney, can make or break your deal. You need a team that is not only experienced and knowledgeable, but also aligned with your interests and proactive in their approach and capable of working together. Let me share a quick story on this end to highlight this. I once had a client who decided to go with an attorney who charged the lowest price possible, and that they found through an online referral. At first, it seemed like they were saving money, but as the process unfolded, the attorney missed key deadlines, was hard to get a hold of, and didn't respond to urgent communications from their lender. This caused a lot of unnecessary delays and brought the client dangerously close to an expiring rate lock. By the time they reached out to me, frankly, because no one else would pick up, they were scrambling and desperate to get some answers and to understand where they stood on the deal. Thankfully, in this case, we were able to step in and coordinate with other parties and get the closing back on track. But the stress, the delays, the anxiety, and the additional costs could have been avoided if they'd chosen the right professional from the start. Here's my advice. Don't cut corners on expertise. Do your homework. Look at reviews, ask for recommendations, and make sure the professionals you hire are not just qualified, but also have a track record of going above and beyond for their clients. There's a level of compassion that's needed when it comes to real estate deals. Make sure these professionals have it. Real estate is just too significant an investment to risk an inexperience or lack of accountability. With over 16,000 closings under our belt, many clients have come to us for verified referrals because we've worked with them. And we've worked with all parties across all countless types of transactions. We know who's responsive, who can solve problems, and most importantly, who genuinely cares about getting the deal done right and for you. Surround yourself with professionals who are dependable, communicative, and truly invested in your success. The right team will not only help you navigate challenges, but will also give you the confidence to move forward, knowing that you're in good hands. So that wraps up our very first episode of Start with the Close in Mind. Today, we talked about 3 critical steps to closing a successful real estate deal. Hire the right company. Take time to research and choose a closing and title insurance company that prioritizes your interests and has a proven track record of success. Number 2, engage that closing company. The sooner, the better. And the sooner you involve them, the better position you'll be to identify and address potential issues before they become potential deal breakers. Work with the right professionals. That's number 3. Surround yourself with a team that's dependable, communicative, and truly invested in your success. This podcast, Start with the Close in Mind, is all about giving you the tools and insights you need to approach real estate transactions with confidence. In each episode, I'll be sharing actionable tips, real-life stories to help you navigate the process. But that's not all. In future episodes, we'll also be joined by industry experts, including brokers, lenders, attorneys, and others who will share their unique perspectives on what it takes to close deals successfully. We'll dive into the strategies and lessons that have helped them thrive in a fast-paced world of real estate. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. I'd also love it if you shared this with anyone who you feel could benefit from it. Anyone buying real estate, especially. Thank you for tuning in to Start with the Close in Mind. I'm Dorian Lamb, and I'll see you at the next one. Until then, remember, start with the close in mind, and you'll always put yourself in a position for success. Thank you.